Hey, by the way, I have Girl Scout cookies to share, so if everybody wants one, just let me know, okay?
You are live now, Chair Oslin.
I'd like to call the Parks and Community Services Commission meeting for February 23rd, 2022 to order. Can we have our roll call, please?
Yes. Before I take roll, let me note for the record, Assembly Bill 361 suspends certain provisions of the Brown Act, allowing public meetings like this one to be held by teleconference to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. At this time, I will conduct roll call and afterward confirm certain matters for the record. Commissioner Dorlick.
Here.
Commissioner Breed.
Present.
Commissioner Mitra. Commissioner Lopez Lucy.
Present.
Commissioner Ellicott Pesic. Student Commissioner Thanamala.
Present.
Vice Chair Keniston Lee. Vice Chair Keniston Lee.
Sorry, here.
Thank you. Chair Oslin.
Present.
Thank you. Based on the responses to the roll call, the record should reflect that all committee members can hear the proceedings clearly. Seeing no objection, I will turn the meeting back over to the chair with a reminder that all votes must be taken by roll call. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Item 2, Commission Business 2.1, Library Advisory Committee Annual Report. We'll receive a report and an introduction from Brad Morris, Program Manager, and a presentation by Kyle Levy, the chair. Hi, Brad.
Good evening, Chair Oslin, commissioners. Thank you very much for having me here this evening. I greatly appreciate it. I'm going to wait for Kyle to get on here. Perfect. Thank you. Well, thank you very much for allowing me to introduce Kyle Levy, the chair of the Library Advisory Committee, who will be presenting the Library Advisory Committee annual report. The Library Advisory Committee has been very busy this year, and we're excited to update you on all those items that we've been working on, as well as those goals and objectives that we're recommending for next year. As you know, with everything going on this last year has been an adventure, from thinking we are coming out of COVID and then back in and then back out, and the library has been pivoting like the rest of us. So the Library Advisory Committee has been great on helping the county and our libraries figure out what's best to do and how to meet the needs of our community. So this evening, we recommend the commission receive this report and provide feedback to the committee and staff, and recommend the report be forwarded to the City Council. And without further ado, I would like to turn the floor over to Chair Levy.
Thank you, Brad. Good evening, Chair Oslin. Good evening, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here. As Brad said, my name is Kyle Levy, and I am the current chair of the San Ramon Library Advisory Committee. And tonight I'm going to present to you our 2021 annual report. So next slide, please. So first, a little bit about the current membership of the Library Advisory Committee. The committee is currently made up of 5 members and 2 alternates. And in that picture there are some of us. I believe member Gilchrist and member Ross and alternate Gomez weren't able to attend the night that photo was taken, but the rest of us did. And I can also am thankful that I wore a different tie tonight, and I'm not wearing the same one that I am in that picture. I do have more than one. So that is the current membership of the committee. Also, you can see, I believe, the liaison from this commission, Commissioner Mitra, is there in that picture, as our city council members, Perkins and Armstrong, and the teen council representative. So that's the committee makeup. Next slide, please. So in terms of the charge of the committee, the Library Advisory Committee's role is to be an advocate for issues that affect the San Ramon libraries, the programs that those libraries put on for the community, and to help represent the interests of the community when those library programs are considered. As part of that work, we receive regular updates from city staff at the advisory committee meetings. We also receive updates from senior community library manager, Dina Hollowood, about city library operations as well as county library operations and current program changes that are happening there. We also participate in receiving reports from this commission as well as the teen council and the city council to understand and have a fuller picture of what's going on in the city and any issues that might affect the libraries. So next slide, please. In terms of goals and objectives for 2021, it was a eventful year. And some of these are standing items, but they're always given full attention by the committee as we meet on a quarterly basis. In terms of the first one, the Library Advisory Committee will monitor the retention and use of library performance standards and metrics as outlined in the city's general plan 2035 update. The Library Advisory Committee did receive staff reports from the senior community library manager, as well as city staff at our April 2021 meeting about those library performance metrics and provided feedback to city staff about those. We continue to receive regular updates about those metrics and provide feedback from the community as those metrics are being considered. We also, and this is one was particularly important in 2021, continue to evaluate library services to ensure San Ramon's library services meet and respond to the community's evolving needs. As Brad said at the introduction, we had an eventful year in terms of thinking, well, maybe we were coming out of COVID and could resume in-person library programs. Maybe we need to stay remote. Ultimately, we went mostly the remote route, but we were able to resume we were able to resume metered service and transition away from front door service, which you'll read about a little bit more in the report. Next slide, please. The Library Advisory Committee also continued to monitor the progress of the Contra Costa Community College District bond construction plans as they related to a library at the San Ramon campus and the impact that new facility will have on overall library offerings to the community. So the city staff provided updates to the Library Advisory Committee throughout the year about this issue, about the construction and the operations of this new community college library. It officially opened to students and the community in August and had a grand opening ceremony in November. So it's still relatively new. We're still evaluating it and keeping an eye on the development of that new library is going to be part of our goal for the coming year, which you'll hear about a little bit later in the report. Next slide, please. The Library Advisory Committee will continue to monitor the Contra Costa Library Strategic Plans implementation in San Ramon. We received staff reports and updates from the county library manager regarding the strategic plan at our October meeting. We've also reviewed the strategic plan and provided feedback to staff on an ongoing basis. We were very pleased with how the county was able to move so many library operations countywide online to help meet the community's needs during this time. We were also pleasantly surprised that the community really took advantage of those opportunities. Perhaps not as much as they might have been able to in person, but definitely there was a lot of interest in online library offerings, which the advisory committee was very happy to see. The Library Advisory Committee also reviewed and approved the Story Walk stories presented by the Youth Services Librarian. So this is definitely a function of the committee that we all enjoy a lot, because it basically means as adults we get to read and evaluate children's picture books, look at how they will help benefit the community in an outdoor setting. For those of you who haven't done the Story Walk at Central Park, it's well worth it. I've taken it several times myself. I don't have children, but I enjoyed it all the same. So in terms of what we approved this year, we reviewed and approved the book They Say Blue by Jillian Tomax for summer 2021. The book All Are Welcome by Alexandra Penfold for fall of 2021. Calvin Can't Fly, the story of a bookworm birdie by Jennifer Byrne for winter 2021. And then coming up for spring 2022, we have Hank's Big Day, the story of a bug. All of them are delightful books. We definitely enjoyed reading them and we were proud to recommend all of them. Next slide, please. The Library Advisory Committee will did evaluate the current layout and offerings of the Doherty Station Library and make recommended changes as that library will no longer be serving the community college population. So this kind of ties into the other goal that we mentioned earlier about the new college district library opening up. And it means that there is now room for some changes at the Doherty Station Library since that partnership is no longer in place. We've received a staff report from the county library manager regarding the current layout of the Doherty Station Library. and made some changes that could potentially be considered going forward. We've continued to provide feedback to staff on an ongoing basis. The advisory committee was absolutely supportive of reconfiguring the library to better serve the community now that we have a different population to keep in mind. I had mentioned it earlier, the library advisory committee evaluated and provided feedback on the transition from front door services to metered services, which this is, you can imagine, was a very big ticket item in 2021. I myself experienced using the library both when it was using only front door services and when we transitioned, when we transitioned back to metered services. There's definitely a difference between the two. I think metered services are certainly something the community wanted to see, and I'm glad that that was able to happen in 2021. And we're continuing to monitor the community's responses to that. Next slide, please. Looking forward to 2022, some of the goals that I had previously reviewed for last year are annual goals. So they're going to look pretty familiar for 2022. We'll continue to monitor the retention and use of the library performance standards and metrics. We'll continue to evaluate overall library services, and we'll continue to monitor the impact that the new library will have on overall library offerings throughout the community. Next slide, please. The advisory committee will also continue to monitor the Contra Costa County Library Strategic Plan implementation in San Ramon. We'll continue to review and approve the story walk stories that are presented by the Youth Services Librarian to the committee for approval. And we'll continue to evaluate and provide feedback on the transition from online programming to COVID-safe in-person programming, which is definitely something that we're all very eager to see in 2022. Not just the advisory committee, but I think we all are eager to be able to see that start to happen and to see the community's response to that. So that's very exciting. Next slide, please. This one was interesting. The Library Advisory Committee will visit the community college library during different times of the day, log what they observe, and recommend ways to encourage the community to better engage with the space. This one was very exciting to the committee because it implied that we'd be able to take a field trip, maybe not necessarily together, but just on our own. I'll admit I have yet to schedule my walkthrough of the community college library, but I certainly will prior to our next meeting. And being able to see on the ground that situation and report back to the committee is something we're all looking forward to. And then also we'll encourage the Library Advisory Committee members to be ambassadors for the library, attend at least one library event or program per year in San Ramon, and provide feedback to staff. This is also very important to the committee. I myself am a member of the San Ramon Library Foundation. So having members of the committee act as ambassadors for the library and to the community at large is very important. And as soon as we continue to implement more in-person programs for the library, having members of the advisory committee take a more active and visible role in library activities to the community is something that we're all very eager to do and looking forward to. Next slide, please. Oh, well, that concludes the 2021 report presentation. So if there are any questions from the commission, I'd be happy to help address them. And I have Brad to jump in case you guys get too technical.
Thank you very much, Kyle. Great presentation. Before we open it up to the commissioners, I'd like to find out if we have anyone in the audience that would like to make a public comment. I see a hand raised.
We do have one hand raised. And before we go to public comment, I would just like to make one announcement. Before we start with public comment, I would like to remind all speakers of the following guidelines for participation in this meeting. The chair may briefly interrupt your testimony in order to encourage compliance with these guidelines. So when you are speaking, it is important to keep these in mind. No profanity or obscenity, refrain from personal threats or attack, respect all people, refrain from hateful labeling or demeaning language based on hate of a person's race, religion, sexual orientation, ethnicity, gender, or disability. Respect all people that are present or watching. The chair may at their discretion remove any speaker from continuing public comment for the duration of the meeting for any of the following reasons: exceeding the allotted time to speak, yelling, screaming, or other behavior that renders the commission unable to continue the meeting, excessive profanity or slander, specific threats or fighting words that incite violence, speech that is outside the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission or the specific agenda item in which we're speaking. Thank you for listening to the guidelines. I will now bring in the speaker. So one moment, let me first share my screen to bring up the timer. Speaker one, you're allowed to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
It's funny that you're the only meeting that you always announce that particular statement. You must have very violent people who participate in your meeting. And I pray that, you guys will be safe when it becomes physical, because it really concerns me that you guys always feel the need to announce that, and I don't hear that with other meetings. Anyways, I just have a question for the library presenter. I didn't really hear if our library is now more updated with our lifestyle or technology because of this past 2 years. Are we having a library that is still book oriented, or are we now becoming more like digital book oriented? I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but I'm wondering, are we making changes to, help those students who might, need to bring their library activities up to date with their schoolwork, which is now mostly digital now? Just wondering. Thank you.
Thank you, speaker. And I will stop sharing.
Do we have any additional?
We do not.
Okay, great. All right. Well, again, Kyle, thank you very much for your presentation. And I'd like to welcome the commissioners to provide any feedback or comments. Not seeing, I see one hand. Commissioner Breed.
Thank you, Commissioner Ellison. Hey, Kyle, thank you so much for the presentation. Super informative. And thank you for all your effort that. I have 2 questions for you. My first question is there any help you need from us as commissioners at all? And the second question is, I was looking at one of your goals that talks about meet and respond to evolving needs from the community. If you had to take a look at the past 2 years, what have been the big needs that you've seen or trends that you've seen that will continue, that the library needs to continue to offer during as we come out of being more in person, or we go into being more in person? Does that question make sense?
It does, yes. I'll defer the question about what the commission might be able to do for the advisory committee to Brad, because I think he's in a better position to perhaps address that. In terms of the needs of the community over the last 2 years, especially, and kind of going forward, I do think the offering of programs for youth is probably one of the most crucial functions that the library can provide, whether those programs are in person or virtual. We all know that the library has always been an important place in most children's lives. And today is no different, especially now in these times, to be able to provide a safe place where they can learn, where they can grow, where they can explore. That's something that's very important to the advisory committee. And I think probably the most crucial thing the library can offer to the community today.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, and I would just like to add, I think a lot of the stuff that we've heard from the county in regards to programming is their online attendance has increased dramatically with COVID, right? They're not able to do that in-person programming, but one of the benefits that they found is all the different branches are offering different online virtual programming, and that enables all the different communities to be able to attend those. So what they're finding is where they would normally get 30 to 40 participants, some of these virtual classes are getting up to 100 plus, because now they can engage the communities across the county as a whole. So I think that's one of the things they really learned from, and how will they be able to continue to move forward with that when they go back to in-person programming? Will they do a hybrid of that, and will the community still engage with that online presence as well as the in-person presence? So I think that was kind of a big takeaway from this year. And I think too, in regards to the public comment and to your question, I think another big takeaway is really meeting the needs of the community. Yes, we're finding that we need to be, and all of our facilities and their programmings are adjusting to the needs of the community, right? So we're bringing in a lot more laptops compared to your standard computer type things, more Wi-Fi capability, because we see those students studying on their laptops more so than a book. But we're still getting that demand from our community for those books and the traditional library services. So really trying to meet the needs of both and really figure out what they're interested in. The county did a great job in regards to providing the county-wide, so for example, hotspots that they would be able to take with them for studying purposes, which was a huge success. So I think that's just a perfect example of figuring out what the community needs during these times and how they can meet it, and the county, really figuring out how to fit within those demands. So those were the couple that come to mind in regards to that. And I think as far as your original question, what the commission can do is, I think it's great. Our liaison continues to come to our meetings and supports our meetings, and brings us up to speed with what's going on, and hopefully is coming back to you with the things that we're talking about. And then, continuing for this commission to be engaged with the library and our services. And traditionally over the years, you are very involved with what the library and the county and our community is wanting, and supporting that, and hearing what's going on and being part of those discussions. And so I think just that continued investment that this commission has on the libraries is great support for the library, the county, and the library advisory committee as they're continuing to help be a liaison.
Thanks, Brad.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. Vice Chair Keniston-Lee.
Thank you, Chair Osland. Well, libraries hold such a special place in our community, and they hold a special place in my heart. I think they are community builders and educators and just wonderful things. And we are very fortunate to have a strong and wonderful group of folks on our library advisory committee to advise us. So we're well positioned there. I had a clarifying question, and then I had actually a couple of clarifying questions and then some feedback. One is, I got real excited about hearing about the goals and the things that you've done, but I'd love to know a couple more specifics. So on the DVC, the Contra Costa County, the library over at the college, I know you've had to take a look at that and figure out some recommendations for reconfiguring the Doherty Station Library. Can you give me, maybe it's Kyle can give us a couple of specifics on what you guys recommended to do some reconfiguration? How are you responding?
Sure. Well, in terms of the reconfigurations, as far as I know, they're still somewhat in the early stage, and I believe that Brad and the city have been meeting with, I think the designer is Margaret Sullivan Studios, which designs libraries. I'm not entirely sure how far along that's actually gotten. I was assuming we'd probably get an update at our next advisory committee meeting about where that process is at.
Yeah, so maybe some high level stuff at one of our future meetings, Brad.
Yeah, for sure. And right now so where we are with that is currently there was a CIP to do some standard maintenance improvements on aging facilities type of a thing, right? Mm-hmm. So it wasn't actually a redesign or what we're all excited about with the San Ramon Library. It's basically carpet, paint, HVAC, lighting, kind of those type of things. So with that, which is a currently approved CIP, we're also looking into, is there an opportunity for looking at, can we make some changes with that going on, or do we need to wait? And so we're currently evaluating that. Some of the changes, just the high level changes that we talked to the committee about, are looking at, reconfiguring our sections. So our children's sections in one area, but it's kind of too close to the desk, so it gets noisy. So can we move that children's section to another area of the library, which is a little bit bigger? Because we find that the demographic's going to change, where it's going to be more children compared to college students or adults. We're still going to get some of that, but we're looking at those configurations. The teen area, bringing that a little bit forward, creating some more spaces for them to gather, but also being able to supervise a little bit. And then also looking at line sight. So for safety reasons, and once again, for, keeping an eye on the facility, some line sight things that they would like to see addressed. And some of that has to do with moving of stacks. So where the library books, those are on stacks. So can we reconfigure those stacks where we're creating that space that better meets the needs of the community, and also creating an environment where the librarians are better able to supervise the library as a whole, and just overall programming. And so anyways, those are kind of the things that we're looking at. Is there a way to incorporate some of those changes within the work that needs to be done? And then if not, how can we circle back on this as a future project type of a thing? But once, like Kyle said, we're kind of in the early stages to figure out, can we squeeze this in with the current CIP? And if not, and the county's been great. They have Margaret Sullivan, who has been working with the county in regards to the Pleasant Hill Library, which I don't know if you know, but that's being totally renovated, as well as countywide, looking at kind of flow and how the different libraries are set up. So they were kind of working on this already from the different libraries, and were really able to give us some recommendations for our library as well. So
Right.
anyways,
Okay.
sorry,
Yeah,
back-
that's great. No, you're good. That's sort of more of what I was looking for. And then beyond that, for a future thing, is sort of specifically, how did you guys respond over at Doherty Station to the fact that the college library is now around, and that kind of dynamic? So that'll be interesting to hear moving forward. I think that what the staff report really shared with me, what really told me, is that our library advisory committee not only is very engaged, but I love the fact that staff is keeping them so well informed. At every turn, they're hearing reports. You guys are hearing from the players in the library world, and that I thought was great. And I think the story walk is a huge feather in everyone's cap. I love that. It's just so exciting to walk through the park and see that. So that's wonderful. I think as we see library operations move to a more regular operation, if you will, I'd love to see information on how the study room usage is going, because when we, for example, with the new library, the renovated library, we made a real point of increasing the number of study rooms. So I would be interested to see, as we sort of hopefully go more out of the COVID pandemic, how are the rooms being used? What are the challenges? What's working well? Also, not for today necessarily, Kyle and Brad, but in the future, I know there was a cutback of hours that we discussed at the commission level. I'd like to know, how is that impacting service, and are we looking at usage trends and where those two things meet? So that's something I'd love to hear about as well. But I did have a question. I know some of the other advisory committees are doing some benchmarking by going and visiting, say, the senior advisory committee, other senior centers, to see what are they doing, what are those best practices. And I didn't see that in the 2022 goals. Is that something you guys, Kyle, have ever talked about?
Like I had said, in terms of, I think the goal regarding visits to the community college library, I think the advisory committee is more than happy to do site visits to sort of expand our knowledge and breadth.
I think that would be awesome to see what other civic, municipal libraries are doing, and what those best practices are that you feel would work well here in San Ramon. That would be awesome. So that would be really good. The other thing I was going to ask about in terms of a potential goal is whether you feel it's valid for the Library Advisory Committee to include a goal about inclusion and diversity. I know that, our librarian and our staff take opportunities to highlight authors that celebrate diversity and inclusion, but I sort of wondered to myself if it's important enough to our community and our library operations that perhaps it would be a good reminder of something to keep focus on. Have you guys talked about that at all as a potential goal?
We probably should, because I think that's an excellent idea. Those discussions haven't really happened to my knowledge as of yet, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's certainly
Run it
something
by,
we could do.
yeah, run it by the team. And I think that, it's something I think you guys would naturally do anyway, but I think it makes a statement that's important to our libraries. It's important to our community. And then finally, thank you for allowing me to speak further, Commissioner or Chair Roseland. I like that you guys talked about visiting community college libraries during different times of the day, encouraging and figuring out ways to recommend that the community engage with the space better. I'd love to see a community education piece go out specifically about how best to use our libraries, right? Because the fact that we have this new community college library is new to a lot of folks. I'm sure there are a lot of folks over in the Doherty Valley who are very familiar with it at this point. But if there's a differentiation between, I need to go to the library, when might I use the college library? Then when might I go to the main library, or when did I go to Doherty Station? Sort of some kind of community education piece that you guys could work with our assistant city manager on, to sort of tell people, here are some things you might think about when deciding which library to go to. I think that would be really helpful to the community. And I think that's it. I think you guys are doing a great job. I know that your hands have been tied somewhat with the whole COVID thing, but we appreciate your expertise, all of you, and your enthusiasm and your devotion to the libraries and the role they play in the community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Dorlick.
I was going to make a motion to accept the report if there were no other comments from commissioners.
I have a comment.
Okay, well, I will do it post your comment then.
Thank you. Thank you again, Kyle. I think, our library is such a key component of our social infrastructure, and everybody, young, high school, all ages and demographics use the library. So I'm just really happy to see all the different things that the committee is working on, and your goals for the coming year look spot on. I also agree with Vice Chair Keniston Lee with some of the recommendations that she's made. My only question that I had was for your goal 7 about the community college library during different times of the day, log what you would observe and recommend ways to encourage the community to engage with the space better. I'm just curious, what are you guys looking for, and what are you going to do with that information?
Yeah, that's a good question. The thought behind that goal when we discussed it in the committee was to, since it's essentially a new dynamic that we can start to take advantage of, essentially just to gather some raw data about how is it being used, in what ways, and then be able to use those observations to kind of have more informed recommendations about services, not just at that library, but at all the libraries in the city going forward.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. That is all I have. So I'm going to go back to Commissioner Dorlick and go ahead and make a motion, please.
Sure, I move that we accept the report in its entirety and move it on to the city council for their review.
Okay. Right. We have a motion by Commissioner Dorlick and a second by Commissioner Lopez-Lucy.
Great, we will take a roll call. Commissioner Dorlick,
Yes.
Commissioner Breed,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez-Lucy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Keniston Lee,
Aye.
Chair Oslin.
Aye.
Thank you, passed.
Great. Thank you again.
Thank you all very much. We really appreciate the feedback and the support.
You bet.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 2.2, commission business, San Ramon Parade proposal and recommendations. Kathy's going to give us an introduction, and we'll receive a presentation by Jessica Reber and Susie Chow.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce this parade topic this evening. As you know, we earlier this month, we had the Dog Park Initiative, which came forward as one of our special initiative teams. And this is the second of our 4 teams that our staff, who aren't normally necessarily assigned to an area, stepped up to take on a new project and to do some research and to kind of take a deep dive into parades. We originally started down this path because some of the city council members had expressed interest in looking at it again. You know, San Ramon had a parade for years and it stopped, and they wanted us to take a peek into that and what it would be like. And so again, these staff have reached deep, done a lot of research, and come up with a proposal for you today to get some feedback. So I'm very, very pleased to introduce Jessica Reber and Susie Chow. Take it away.
Thank you, Kathy, and good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Well, Jessica and I are pleased to bring you the San Ramon Parade proposal. Christy, would you begin the slides, please? So the parade proposal we're bringing before you tonight is our Celebrations of Light Parade. Advance the slide, please. In our parade research, we found that our local annual parades are very holiday focused. So we recommended that the parade that we're going to look at for San Ramon is not driven by a specific holiday, but more about a fun space and event for all to be able to showcase their personal and cultural celebrations of light. So light to be experienced in different ways throughout the community. Next slide, please. Christy, if we go back to the Napa Lighted Art Parade slide.
One more back.
One more back, please. Mm-hmm.
And Christy, if you unmute yourself, we'll hear the audio. So since we don't have the music going on in the background, we did want to be able to just show you this, the Napa Lighted Art Parade. They have been doing this for a few years now, and theirs is a different format. It's more like a week-long event of different things happening, but we found this and wanted to showcase what it could look like to bring the community out, be a very participatory event. Like Susie had talked about, there's opportunity to invite many people, many different groups, and we'll touch on that a little bit later, but we really want it to be a big community event where people can come and participate and make their own lanterns, as you saw there. And so that was really just highlighting what it can look like. Go ahead, Susie.
Thank you, Jessica. All right, next slide, please. So as we sort of continue to gather a vision of what this might look like for San Ramon, I want to sort of take you around the images that you see here. So starting on the top left, you see an image of a Pinocchio driving a tractor, not unlike tractors that we have at Forest Home Farms. So that's a fun way to bring a vehicle into the parade that's lit. And then as you go up and around in a clockwise manner around the slide, you see a band with some lighted headdresses and lights around their instruments. You'll notice that we have a crowd that has some lighted fishes or some kind of art element that has light in it. You'll also see the Girl Scouts here with one of their cookie mobiles, and that's just a kind of a fun way to engage a different kind of group in a non-walking manner. Down below, you'll see another way that we have a band with different kinds of lights, an 18-wheeler or part of a rig there that's lit up in a fun manner. And then the last one that you'll notice as we go around the slide here is this is actually part of the facades in the Napa riverfront area. So they did a lighting element onto the facades. And so we could imagine how maybe that might look on one of our buildings in San Ramon, say like City Hall, as you might walk by that. So kind of just a fun way to think about how a lighted parade might look if we were to bring that to San Ramon. Next slide, please. So when we think about this parade, the time of year is an important consideration. Now, when we met with the facilities committee, we did consider other times of year, but ultimately landed on the idea of a late winter parade, specifically looking at the last weekend of February or the first weekend of March as something that's not impacted by too many other events in the community, whether by large organizations, schools, different kinds of things in that area. So that gives us just a little bit of wiggle room there. Sunset during that time of year falls around 6 p.m. So it would be early enough for families to be involved. But still a little chilly, but not too bad during that time of year. Like we said, it's far removed from traditional holiday events. And there would be lead time for entry applicants, for instance, those that might come from schools or that kind of thing, to be able to put in an entry and to be able to be part of the event when it got underway. Now, we would want to take into consideration that the Dublin St. Patrick's Day Parade falls mid-March, so it would fall a little bit later than this. Next slide, please.
So moving on and talking about what this could look like, again, we really wanted to bring this idea of celebrations of light, where it's not one culture specific. You can get people from all over our community, especially considering the new developments that are happening in the area. There's so much opportunity to include a variety of different cultures, ages, interests, people who do want to come and celebrate their culture and show their cultural celebration of light. And then also things like scout groups can join in, other local community groups, floats, like you see on display here, marching bands, potentially different lighted vehicles like the tractors down at the farm that Susie mentioned, and our tractor volunteers, let me tell you, they love to drive in a parade. So they'd be thrilled to participate, I can assure you that. Large balloons, dancing groups, we really want to reach out and make sure that everyone in our community has an opportunity to come and participate in whatever way feels good to them. And then also there's a hands-on in the community component as well, where we do see, I wouldn't necessarily call it its own entire pre-event, but as the parade is getting ready and lined up, as you saw in the video, there were lighted lanterns that kids were making. And so we really foresee, having an entire area set up where kids can come in, make crafts, potentially purchase glow items, either glow sticks, necklaces, other elements there, and then walk in the parade at their own pace or just walk alongside. And so it's just a really fun, exciting thing to think about. And so we're really just excited for all of the potential opportunity that this brings to our community, and to really make it another great signature event for San Ramon, because this is so different to the different parades that are local to us. Next slide, please. So our parade route that we are suggesting is Camino Ramon, and you will have read that that is where the old parade in San Ramon was. And, we did look at a few different options, but really landed on this route because of just how well it's set up to host the parade. There's no center divide blocking the lanes off. It is far enough removed from the main thoroughfares. We wouldn't be clogging any big arteries. And we would stage probably at the Hills Physicians area for staging. I could see wanting to elongate that, but then we do need to be mindful of, there's Kaiser there and John Muir, and of course you don't want to get in the way of any medical things that people might need access to. But given that, it is 0.8 miles if we start at Hills Physicians and then terminate at Bishop Ranch 3. And other local parades are all about a mile long, and then depending on the number of entrants, that gives you about a couple hours to 3 hours parade, which is more than enough time to come and enjoy at your leisure and then leave when you need to as well. This also has plentiful space on both sides for spectators to congregate and feel comfortable and safe. And our floats however big they be, can fit down the middle, again, because there's no center divide there. There's plentiful access to parking as well. And so it's really just lends itself very nicely to being able to access the parade from various different areas. And then, you know, potentially there is the potential, I can't promise anything now, but we would love to partner with other local businesses and especially potentially do a big, you know, post parade event and giving the awards over something at City Center Bishop Branch. So we think that's a great opportunity to tie them in as well. And of course, there's also our walking district is there and is being planned right now. And there is more housing going up there. So really over the years, it's going to continue to grow. And we really think become an awesome signature event. Next slide. So our budgetary considerations, as you will have read in the staff report, this is not something that would necessarily be absorbed into the existing budget. Of course, some staff time would be absorbed into the existing budget, but there are, of course, various items that we will have to purchase, especially within the first year. And so just kind of a blanket overview of items that is also in your staff report, but you know, there will be costs for signage so that people stay safe, that we can appropriately mark things or have signage for performers or different things of importance that need to be highlighted, sponsors, the cost to have professional judges come in for the various categories to be judged. We, of course, will need to do digital and print ads leading up to get the information out to the community and the Tri-Valley. Awards, sound system, you know, we definitely want to have a stage area and we want to bring in that professional component where the floats are being announced and people are excited and happy to come and celebrate, and then also have that to announce the award winners at the end. We'll need some barricades. We have some as the city of our own, but we'll need the more substantial traffic sort to, you know, make sure that we have safety. Along with safety comes lighting and radios. And so we just need to make sure that we have all of those items. And then of course, general supplies, Parks and Rec professionals, we love some zip ties and duct tape, so we'll need a lot of that. And then like the glow items that we'll purchase potentially for sale, and then craft supplies, as you saw and we talked about, so people can participate, make their craft, and be a part of this great community experience. In terms of personnel costs, we foresee there being a substantial cost in terms of having part-time employees that can help make the event happen, and then full-time employees, which are not spelled out here, but in your report, which is, you know, all of the like police, public works, all of those costs will be overtime, will not be incorporated into their existing budget. So all in all, expenses with staff time puts us at around our projection, $78,115. And then potential for revenue would be entry fees, any sponsors we're able to get, and any sale of glow items. So a hopeful expectant $9,100 potentially in that area too, with again, room to grow as we expand throughout the years. Next slide. So at this point, we really just want to open it up to any questions you might have, or any feedback on anything listed there or anything else that you have thought of.
Great. Thank you, Susie and Jessica, for your presentation. Before I open it up to the commissioners, I want to just make sure, looks like we have a hand up in our attendees. So we have a public comment.
We do. Let me bring up our timer. 1 moment. Speaker, you're allowed to talk.
Hello.
So first of all, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So first of all, thank you for the presentation. As a public, I have the following comments. Number one, I think the naming of this activity is a little bit confusing because celebration of light, first of all, gives me the image of Diwali or Christmas. Then it tells me that it is winter. but then this is going to take place in February or March, which is spring. I think the timing is really odd. And if it's February, there is no worse month because February it is already extremely congested with all sorts of holidays. You have Black History Month, you have two President's Day, you have Chinese New Year often falls on February, and then you have the Persian holiday that I heard you guys are celebrating as well. This is not going to be, I'm sorry, I just don't see how this can fit into, our calendar presently. And then also the time that is being suggested, I'm assuming that this could be a weekday. I'm not sure, what the city has in mind, but I am terrified of the 6 p.m. time. That's when it is still peak traffic time. And I'm also afraid of the trash and the crimes that's going to bring in from other cities. I'm pretty sure in order to make a mere $9,100, I'm thinking we should be able to make more to make this worthwhile, to put up all the noise and the lights and the crime and the trash, but only $9,100. I'm not so sure it's completely worth it. So I hate to sound like a party pooper because that's not what I'm trying to be. I am just, wondering exactly if the purpose for this activity is to make money. $9,100 is not meeting that objective. And if this activity is to celebrate, something, and I fail to see what that something is because of the month it's that the staff is suggesting, and I don't see how this is going to benefit our residents or citizens, but it sounds like it's going to be benefiting more like outside interest groups from Napa. I'm sorry, I don't see what this is about at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. We have one more speaker. Speaker, you're allowed to, Eva Harris, you're allowed to speak.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, hi. I am all for parades, and I'm especially all for light parades. I have attended multiple times the Danville Parade, the Dublin Parade, the Pleasanton Parade, and I'm here to say that this is not about money or revenue, and it's more about bringing the community together. I agree only on this one topic with the previous caller that says we should not overlap with other cultural events like Chinese New Year, for example. But if we can work around all of those, I think we have a great opportunity to bring the community together and make it a family event. And I'm here to say that I will be a part of any planning that goes on for this parade. I will volunteer my services to help bring it together. So write my name down and call me if you need help with that. And I think it's a great idea. And I would love for San Ramon to have a parade. So that's it. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. We have no other public comment.
Okay, great. All right, I'd like to open up feedback from the commission, and I will start with Commissioner Dorlick.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. Is the public safety budget within the part-time and full-time equivalent employees, or is that a separate line item? That's number one.
So the full-time staff salaries that we did include were for public works and also for police. And so to have
Okay.
Police presence there and make sure that they are patrolling the route. And so, yes, that was incorporated into that staff time.
Okay, and traffic control. And,
Yes, traffic control, all of that.
Things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, the budget seems a little low looking at some of those areas, but you know, I'll you know, go with your expertise.
And you know what,
on that.
And as we met with the program subcommittee, they said that too. And so we actually did go back and I, you know, pushed numbers up, and I didn't want to overshoot it, but I didn't mean to undershoot it either. And I think that it'll just be a matter of finding out. But you know, we took out, that's not fully representative of like mine and Susie's time as, you know, parks professionals. That'll just be absorbed into what we're already doing. But we definitely counted on those other full-time employees outside of our department. We did up the budget area, and it is actually based on me looking at, or us looking at, different rentals that we use for Art and Wind Festival that we've just done for like the staging and all of those things. And I kind of push those up a little bit too. But I do tend to be conservative in those areas. So I appreciate that. And then is this a time for me to respond to other comments, or do we continue with?
Well, I was going to ask a question too. So sponsors, entry fees, you know, the sale, what were those based upon? You know, for example, entry fees, is that for floats, community organizations?
Yeah, for floats.
People?
Mm-hmm. And, you know, looking at different cities that do parades, there are higher entry fees in some areas because those are run by nonprofits and it's really a fundraiser for them. And then there are much lower fees in other ones. So we did ours. I think it is in the report that it's about, you know, if we did 65 entry groups at 35 each, somewhere around there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there any thought to having, so the sponsors are just kind of the usual normal sponsors, corporate sponsors, you know, et cetera, things like that, that would be included in the program or with banners or participating with, you know, as a marshal or something like that, or et cetera?
Yes.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of different opportunities that we could explore, Will, excuse me, Commissioner Dorlick, with this.
Either way is fine. Mrs. Chow.
You know, with this parade, I think that there's a number of, you know, different ways that we could look at garnering sponsorship, but it's definitely something that we wanted to make sure was included, as that is a, you know, that's an important aspect to the event and to making this budget all work.
Sure. Yeah. No. It sounds like fun. You know, and I think the positioning of the timing, you know, does avoid some of the other areas that were mentioned, and you know, makes it a little bit more community and not particularly, you know, ethnic focused on any particular holiday or event or, you know, et cetera. Yeah, I like it.
Great. Vice Chair Keniston Lee.
So Commissioner Dorlick, are you gunning for a position on one of those cars that drives through the parade?
Either that or the Appaloosa.
There you go.
I still do have caps at home.
There you go. So I also had a question about entry fees. And I'm sure that you guys did some benchmarking with some other communities, but on one side, I wouldn't want it to be a deterrent for, you know, a community group to participate. So that I just put that sort of out in the universe. On the flip side, I can see how a nominal fee sort of makes a certain commitment to following through, so you don't have folks flake. So I get the dichotomy there. And I'm sure you guys will keep in mind, you know, budgets of different organizations and what they could really afford to participate, because especially that first year, we want to get the ball rolling and get folks participating. So if I understand the map correctly, Jessica, it wraps up at City Center, right?
Yeah, essentially. So people can, floats can terminate and peel off at that Bishop Branch 3, but then the hope is then to draw people down to City Center, and it's still close enough within walking distance to either do an event there, or people, you know, just have that good synergistic feel.
Yeah, because I was thinking, my first thought was folks are so crazy about food trucks that it would be neat to incorporate that, which may still be an option, but I see the value in getting folks driven to city center where there are lots of places to eat. And so, and lots of potential sponsors for this event as well. So that would be good. I do think that even though I was in on that subcommittee meeting talking about the budget seeming a little low, having done many events in my lifetime, I think it's still low. I really do. But that's something that can be tweaked. I mean, you guys are getting there. Thank you for taking that into account, making those adjustments. But I think we're still a little bit low. I think what we're going to find is you guys have done such a fabulous job that this thing is going to go like gangbusters, and you're going to have we see that with events, post-COVID events right now, where there are way more people at the culture in the community or what have you, people that are showing up that we anticipate. So I think you're going to find that. That's what my gut tells me. Also, with regard to the glow items, I know you have I think you had a $500 budget for glow items that you would then anticipate selling to raise some revenue. I kind of agree with folks who've said that that's not really the focus of this event. And I would see upping our expectations of sponsorship levels and really going out there and getting bigger dollars for sponsorship of this event. Because it culminates at City Center, I think there's an inherent benefit for sponsors there. And I think that particularly with the first one, I'd like to see us see if we can raise those sponsorship dollars to give out and not charge for any handheld glow items for the community that participates. So that was a big one for me. And then the last thing was just to say, I love this idea. I love that you guys thought outside of the box with the light. I always listen to what my colleagues and what the public says in public comment. I didn't personally have a problem with celebration of lights, but I did have a thought of something like San Ramon Shines Parade, which, reflects the lighting thing of it. I honestly could go either way, but I'm really excited. I think this is going to be a huge community builder, and I think this is wonderful. So thank you. Thanks for all the work you guys did to get us to this point.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Lopez-Lucy.
Well, thank you for all your ideas and everything. I was in part of the parade when we first had parades, and would march and get your group together. We didn't have lights or whatever, but I think this makes it more fun. So the one question I had when we were working with that, the parks employees that will be working on this, that's going to be in the parks budget. There wouldn't be a separate budget for those who are going to work on it. Would it add to this or not?
I think we're, as we look at our workflow and the things that we have going on, it's one of those items that we will adjust our schedules to accommodate what needs to be accommodated in order to make this happen. But you're right, there are things that we have to look at, but I'll hand it over to Kathy for more of those details.
Just help out a little bit on this. So as you know, we've been talking about nature programs for a long time. So we'll be picking up a supervisor this year for nature. And so having another supervisor gives us this great opportunity to kind of reapportion some different amounts of work and events and programs. And so that's where we think we've got some bandwidth that we could do the parade. I don't know exactly who would do it and which job and how that iteration would work, but that's why we feel like for Parks and Community Services, we can absorb the full-time cost of that. The temp staff would be in our budget. In both police and public services for their staff who don't normally work on the weekends or where they're already at capacity, they have to do overtime. And so that's why you're seeing that additional bump. So when you look at the big picture of the budget, I agree, probably we can make more sponsors. It's just we're conservative at this point, but you do have to look at the full cost, the fully loaded cost of the program, which includes those police and public service time, as well as our hard cost.
Right, that was just concerning to me because it seemed like you're always understaffed and everything. So you're saying you're adding a staff to Parks and Community Services, which would tremendously help, I would think. But I do have a concern there that there's so much that we need that I hate to see it, a budget with our parks, not being able to meet other needs that there are. Who would take the lead? Is Parks going to take the lead on getting all this organized?
Yes, this would definitely be a Parks and Community Services initiative if it ends up becoming an event for the city.
Okay. And do you plan to have the first one in 2023?
I think that would be one of the thoughts that we have. And the city council really was the group that asked us about this. And so I expect that they will weigh in on their opinions. And so if it makes it through the budget process as an approved item, then yes, we would be aiming for 2023.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's not warm at that time, but I don't have any, objections to it. But I know that that'll be awfully close to the St. Patrick's Day parade also, if you have it in March, so that would be close. But whatever time you make, there's gonna be something else right around it. So whatever you do, you're gonna have to make a decision and we go with it. But I think it sounds like fun. But again, I would say the celebration of light, I could be a little bit, maybe it'd be a little bit different, but that you have light in there, but maybe something a little bit different than that, because celebrations of light do mean different things to different people and to different religious groups and etc. So that might be taken into consideration, that we might want to tweak the name a little bit. So, but good, sounds like fun.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's great feedback on the name. We made it to be ambiguous so it could be open to, how everyone uses light, but that's, great feedback we're getting from you and from the public of, well, it's still kind of confusing. But, we love the idea that everyone does use light in a certain way to celebrate or have fun. And so we wanted to be able to do that and, incorporate light. But yeah, we can work on the name.
Commissioner Dorley.
Thank you. I had a couple of thoughts. We could call it a celebration of incandescent or a celebration of fluorescent. One of those two. That would always work. I know that at the 4th of July for a couple of years, we were going through the crowd selling glow products, and it was through the nonprofits. So that could be something to think about, that would be a nice nonprofit area for, community organizations to raise some money by, selling the glow items and things like that. That's number one. And then number two, when, we were talking about having it end at the city center, it would be kind of fun to have it culminate with a concert at the city center. I know we had that stage set up a couple of times there where the Nike store is now, but that would, that would draw people to that, and it would be a nice culmination. I know we've had Pride and Joy there before. We could have another, local favorite that would be there, and that would not just, be the culmination of the parade. I think it would draw a lot of people there. And it would, really be more of a celebratory environment, rather than just the parade. So think about, maybe getting the nonprofits a way to earn some money with, with selling the products there. And then that cost can go away because that would be their cost, and, et cetera. And then number two, having a concert as a culmination. I think that would be fantastic. It will draw people to the city center, and then proliferate out to the restaurants and beverage providers afterwards.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Breed.
Thank you, Chair. I was like, hey, first of all, Susie and Jessica, thank you so much for taking on this additional work. The way I understood it, those positions, it's over and above your day job. So really appreciate you doing that. That happens a lot with my job too. So I know what that's like. So thank you so much for doing that. Some initial feedback is I really like the concept, and I think it's really important that we get our community out and celebrate as a community. And it's a really good tentpole event to go do that. And take pride in the city. I think Vice Chair Kennison Lee talked a lot about pride in San Ramon. I think it's a really important event that we kind of put a tent pole around that and talk about, whether it's lights. And I do like the light idea. I think it's really smart to do. I think you guys did a really nice job with the route, and I love the part with even the minute detail about median. My two questions I have, or maybe three, if that's okay. My first question deals with communication plan. It would be, have you guys thought about what the communication plan would be to organizations and also to our community in general? I'm not expecting you have, but since I've been on the committee, everyone says, well, the biggest opportunity is how we communicate with this community that we live in. And so, and if you need help, happy to help you. But what would the communication plan be? One, to get people involved in the parade, and two, to get people to attend the parade. I think that would be something I would want to see before we share it forward, right? So I don't know if there's an answer or not to that. And I can ask my other question if you want me to, but let me just tell you, let me know how you want to proceed. Go ahead, Jessica.
You can ask your other question if you like first.
Okay. The other question deals with a title sponsor and once again, I'm kind of the new person on the block here. How do we go about, as a city, getting sponsorship? So, and it's coming from, when I was involved in our community organization, especially soccer, we had to go out and get sponsors for title events. So I have a lot of experience with that. But is there a process we use to go, sell, for lack of a better word, this great idea to get a title sponsor to offset some of the costs and maybe leverage their equity, their brand equity behind the event? Is there, I'm not sure what the guardrails are. So that's my second question on that. And so that's it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great. So we do have one of our full-time staff kind of oversees, in a broad sense, sponsorships, and we have a lot of connections already. And depending on the level that those current sponsors are at, then they might also tag on, this might be an event that they add to that title sponsorship that they're already doing. And then that person also has more of the game plan around the way that we reach out to sponsors. But of course, we would be hitting the ground running as well, and getting out there and talking to our local business owners and all of that. Fortunately, the city of San Ramon, we do have a great connection with them already, and people through the business. We don't have a downtown business association. It's
the Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then in terms of the outreach to the community, we have lots of contacts with other events that we do as well. So we have contacts through the school district, other community groups that we've worked with for culture in the community. For instance, that's kind of a partnership event where the city puts it on. However, we have a great committee through members of the community. So imagine, once you tap that resource and say, hey, we have this great new event going on, who else do you know? How else can we get people involved? So it's a lot of a word of mouth in those regards, but also hand it over to Susie or Kathy.
As we talked about this, the planning of the parade and what that would look like, because with the sort of demise of the last parade, being that there was more attendees or less attendees than participants, I really was focused on, how do we make sure that we have both people on, marching in the parade, but also attending and supporting it. So that's definitely something that Commissioner Reed is very, very front of mind for us. And so we just thrown around ideas about, partnering with the Chamber of Commerce. This would be in the downtown walking district, and it would be right there within Bishop Ranch with City Center. So there's a lot of opportunity, as some of the other commissioners have talked about, to partner, whether it's in the planning process, the sponsorship process, an after event or a community gathering after this, to sort of continue the feeling of, the community coming together. So there's a lot of good opportunities in that area for us to be able to look to. And it's Jessica mentioned the different ways that we can reach out to the community, not only our nonprofits, the business community, reaching out to those like we have and we traditionally do for, say, the Art and Wind Festival.
And that's helpful. I think my feedback would be, if I saw more of this, is here's our communication plan for getting people to attend. Here's people to participate, and then maybe the timeline on how possibly we could get more sponsorship or a title sponsor on that. So that way, once we have maybe best in class, we might already have a best in class communication plan. And I know I'm spending a lot of time on this, but since I've been on this committee, that's all I hear. Oh, we don't we could do a better job communicating. So let's find out best in class plan, and at least we have a start on it, and then we can share and reapply best practices among other events. So anyways, food for thought, because I think if we have that, we can do it. And then my last comment was, I'm going to kind of be the outlier in this. I was really thinking more of a November time period on this, and I get all the challenges that present that timing. But as I take a look at participation, excitement, and success possibilities, I think that, as I look at my business and some trends and how people react to certain things within the business, it's November such a good time period, the first week. But either way, I can support either one. But I just think from a standpoint of lights and everything else you're asking people to go do, you'd have a lot, the opportunity for success may be higher. So once again, I'm the outlier here on that one, but that's just my feedback on that. So once again, thank you guys for taking on this additional responsibility and answer my questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great. I'm going to jump in before Vice Chair Kinnison-Lee and Commissioner Dorlick. Just have a few comments. And again, thank you both. I sat on the programs committee and have heard this presentation and provided feedback earlier. I do like February. Sorry, Steve. I feel like November is people are getting ready for travel and holidays, and there's just a lot going on. But I really like the end of February, that last Saturday, which is actually going to be this weekend. So I think what I'd like for all of our commissioners is to really think about what would it be like if we had one this Saturday, a year from now, kind of like what the lighting would be like and what the weather is. I know we're in a little bit of a cold, period right now, and we could have rain, but I just think that this is a great time. It's not interfering with President's Day or Lunar New Year for Chinese New Year or any of the other holidays that have come up. So it seems to be positioned. If I go into March, which is what I talked about at the programs committee, I feel like it's kind of spring. I'm already thinking, St. Patrick's Day is right around the corner. Spring is almost here. So just mentally for me, end of February is like light is coming. I was thinking a lot about what Vice Chair Kinnison-Lee said about the name. So thanks for getting my little marketing wheels rolling here. But I was thinking about glow and San Ramon glows, something around, San Ramon glows, celebrations of light, something like that, where it is really emphasizing us as a community and how we are vibrant and we're bringing light out. And then so enough about that. The only other comment that I want to make, totally agree with the other commissioners except for the date, is around the distance of it. Can we make it a little bit longer? Is that a possibility? So, starting maybe at Norris and going up to Bishop, possibility gives you that little extra length. And I know, 0.8 is just under a mile, but it's just a little bit longer. I love the other ideas about the music at the end and having the celebration continue. So that's my comments and feedback. And thank you both for doing all this great ideas generation. So I'd like to now go to Vice Chair Kinnison-Lee, and then we'll hear from.
Hey, okay, good. See, this is on the commission, we collaborate. I love that part of our process. And I love the glow element. We could say something like San Ramon Glowing Community Parade. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, but what I wanted to say, that just came out because you came up with that suggestion, but a couple things. I want to validate what Commissioner Breed was saying about the necessity of communications, it's certainly with the sponsorships, but with the community, because, and I just want to put this out there to get it on the radar screen, we have a overpass project that's about to go, Bollinger Canyon overcrossing project. We also, City Council last night heard about the Crow Canyon widening project. And even though there's not direct impact, we need to think about overflow traffic impacts. So, I think we're going to need to talk to our public services folks, our public works folks, to see Would they anticipate any issues? You, Susie and Jessica, you guys maybe have already thought of this, but really critical in that we want this parade to be a success. And so that would be something that would be way heavily on my mind is especially to Commissioner Lopez Lucy's point, that 6 o'clock timeframe could be an issue just in terms of those two big public works projects going on. So I'm sure you guys will check that out. That was it.
Thank you. Commissioner Dorlick.
Thank you, Chair. So I think it's a great idea. I think you can call it whatever you like. I think the timing is great, and you can sign me up as a sponsor. Do I get like a pre-event discount if I sign up right now as a sponsor?
Are you selling glow sticks?
I've sold them before for Rotary, so, but no, I'm serious. I'd love to hear about it more, and I'd love to be a sponsor from a corporate standpoint. So full speed ahead.
Thank you.
So do we need a motion? Or are we just saying, this is great, this is interesting, take a look at a few things and come back with a solid plan, or do we need a motion?
I think you can make a motion if you want to. We were mostly looking for some feedback. And so as we continue to move this idea forward, that we could say that the commission was in support. So I don't necessarily need a motion, but if you're feeling like you want one, go for it.
Well, I just think that it's a great community building idea, and that you don't need a formal motion, but just a expression of support for staff to continue. I would
Commissioner Dorlick, I wouldn't mind a motion from you on this. I think it sends a statement that we were enthusiastically supportive of it, actually.
Would you second it for me?
I just might.
All
From where I
right,
wanted to.
I move that we continue to plan for a parade festival of light in the end of February timeframe, targeting the year 2023, and support staff to move forward with that. I so move.
Second.
You did second it.
I did it. It was touch and go. We didn't know how it was going to go, but I did second it.
Thank you.
Great. Let's take a roll call on that.
Can I discuss something before we take that? What did you say about 2023? Because I'm thinking, hopefully this will go, but I would hate to have it that we
Yeah, it's a good point.
that it must start in 2023.
No, it was just that that staff target 2023. I mean, it's going to be logistical issues. There may be health issues. They may be, gosh, if Summerhill is, in full construction and, there's issues there. No, but I think you always want to put a target and a timeline there, so we have a goal.
But I don't object if you have a target, but I wouldn't want to say that it begins in 2023 if there's issues that,
No, please, I appreciate that, but no, it was simply that's really the timeline that we want to focus on, so that we have a goal in mind and an objective. If there's issues that come up, then we would make an intelligent decision to adjust the timing. But I think
Commissioner Dorlick, would you be willing to amend your motion to reflect first viable date, first viable year, or first viable date?
No, I think you want to be specific about a timeline, and that if it can be met, that's great. If not, we're gonna make an adjustment to it. But I would prefer not to say, sometime in the future, let's think about this. Things don't get done like that. Things get done if you put a timeline in place. And of course, we're going to adjust that timeline if there are extenuating circumstances. We're not.
We just reread the motion so we all understand it again.
Was it written down anywhere?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
But it's actually not a motion. It's a recommended action.
Yes,
It is
thanks.
recommended that the Parks and Community Services Commission receive the San Ramon Parade proposal presentation and provide feedback on the recommendations.
Oh, that wasn't my motion. My motion.
Yeah, no, that's not the motion. Yeah.
Yeah. My motion was that that staff proceed with the planning and target February 2023 as a start date, and provide feedback to us as it progresses. And I so move.
Kathy, is that sufficient for you in terms of giving you flexibility?
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, this is a city council budget question ultimately. And so just having your endorsement that you'd like us to continue to proceed is fine.
Then
Yeah,
I will, my second will carry.
Yeah. And Kathy, that was my question, is that, does that give you enough guardrail to do what you guys want to go do? So if it does, then I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah, it's absolutely fine. If it turns out that it's not approved in the budget, we would not proceed despite the motion. So this, what you're doing is just giving us endorsement to kind of continue down the path.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so can we take a vote?
Yes, and I would just like to announce first, before I do the roll call, that speakers may only speak one time during public comment.
Correct.
So now I will take roll call, and Commissioner Dorlick,
Yes.
Commissioner Breed,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez Lucy,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Keniston Lee,
Aye.
and Chair Oslin.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susie and Jessica. Nice job, by the way.
Yeah,
Thank you.
great job, you guys. It's exciting. All right, item 3, adjournment. I have 8:27 and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
All right.
Really nice job tonight, by the way.
Who wants to meet up at the lot? Who wants to meet up at the lot? Come on, let's wait. Raise your hand. Who wants to meet up at the lot?
I think the meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.